Now, as we are joined by Professor Mohammed, a senior researcher at the Institute for Israeli Thought and the Institute for National Security Studies. Thank you very much, Professor, for being with us. I want to bring in a new angle. We've been seeing since the beginning of this war calls from Hamas and other terror groups to tell much of the Arab-Israeli population inside Israel to rise up, to join the war, to create mobs like we saw back in 2021. Do you see this as a possibility? What would be the triggers for such an event?
Well, thank you for this great question. First of all, these calls should be denounced and condemned from the very beginning, and I was quite happy to see that all political leaders, Arab leaders in Israel, rejected these calls loudly, explicitly, without adding but or maybe or something like that. Hamas is a terrorist organization. It has committed a savage terrorist attack on Israeli national security, all the more so Israeli citizens. And by so far, you can see that the entire majority of the Arab citizens in Israel condemn this terrorist attack. They do not support the kidnap or the killing of innocent people. And to a great extent, Hamas, if it so perceived itself so far as a national religious movement that is, mandated to free the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip the way they see themselves, it has been proven now for everyone, including for the Arabs in the Arab countries, but in particular to the Arabs in Israel, that it is not more than a terrorist organization, actually a savage terrorist organization. Some people try to make comparison between the Hamas and ISIS. I'm sorry, I don't think that they are equal. Hamas is way worse than ISIS. First, because it is used to be argued, at least according to the way they put their arguments, a national religious movement. Or what we have seen from this savage attack is that they have nothing to do with religion, nothing to do with Islam. Actually, these testimonies that we just watched now is a great proof by these terrorist people that what they have committed has nothing to do. Actually, it's contrary to the basic principles of Islam. They have nothing to do with the Palestinian case. The outcome speaks of itself. Since they have taken control over the Gaza Strip, if I correctly remember, back in 2007, they have brought only a terrible life and disasters to the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip. They did not serve the Palestinian case. Whatsoever they are doing is just killing innocent people, terrifying innocent people in Israel and actually in the West Bank. And I shall remind the audience as well that they have been jeopardizing even the national security of the Egyptian from the other side of the border, and that's why the Egyptians did not take any chance when it comes to its national security, and so Israel must not take any chance when it comes to its national security.
What sort of statements have we seen from the rest of the region when it comes down to Israel's war against Hamas itself? I mean, we've seen a lot of outflow of criticism against Israel because of the civilians in Gaza. But when it comes down to Hamas itself, as you've pointed out, they've caused problems for many other regional powers.
You're right about your feeling. We have heard a kind of soft condemnation of the terrorist attack. Most of them did not call it a terrorist attack, but I have to say that the Arab political leaders in Israel were way far courageous than the Arab leaders of the Arab countries, because they condemned these events. Most of them called it a terrorist or a attack against civilians. They did not pick and choose between the words. They were so clear about their message. To the contrary, when it comes to Arab leaders of Arab countries, all the more so Islamic countries, they spoke about the need to reach a solution, a peace in the Middle East, and the Palestinians have a right to have a state of their own, and they are against the killing of innocent people and, of course, the kidnapping of innocent people. But that's not enough. I mean, you have to be very clear-cut about your position. There is here and there's there. And I'm not talking about now about the lay people in Palestine, in the Gaza Strip. I'm talking about people who are doing evil and people who are doing justice. This attack is nothing but a terrorist organization, a terrorist attack. It's way more than a terrorist attack. I mean, we know that terrorism aims, at innocent people, but with this kind of savagery, it is a kind of adoption of the ISIS theory, enveloping it with some kind of nationalistic views, even with Sunni concepts of Islam, which has nothing to do with Sunni, by the way, but more with Wahhabi. And at the same time, their image is way bad. That's why nowadays they are trying to amend or to correct their image by releasing some kidnapped abductees for kind of some sort of humanitarian reasons, or releasing videos while they are feeding these abductees. Nothing will help. I mean, the world has watched this terrorist attack, this kind of savagery. In most cases, they filmed themselves, so no one needs to prove anything. Basically, they prove to the world who they are, what they are, and what they are aiming at. And so I agree with you that the Arab world and the Arab leaders must be more explicit about their position. The history will judge them if they won't do so.
One of the things you just brought up there is the issue of Wahhabism in this conflict, because it's important to bring up because so many people in the West and in the region had the belief that Saudi Arabia could be a mediating force in the conflict. With Wahhabism seeming at the center of it, that seems to be out the window. What about the other Abraham Accord nations as well? Could they possibly moderate? Could they potentially bring the hostages back? What role do all of these people have to play?
Well, it depends on what stage, but let me talk first about the hostages, about the abductees. I think that the Abrahamic Accords has to be leveraged at this stage of time. We did not sign these peace agreements only in order to visit each other as a matter of tourism. Of course, not only for economics, but also we share some common grounds of security, of understanding about our mutual interest in the Middle East, in the world, the connections of these Gulf countries with the Western world, in which Israel is part, etc., etc., etc. And therefore, they have to play an important role, particularly against Qatar. Now, we have to remember that although Qatar and the other the Gulf countries which signed the peace agreements with Israel, they don't share the same concept about the Middle East and about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but they have their own mutual interests, economic interests, tribal interests, geographic interests, border interests, and therefore they can play this game and put pressure on Qatar in order for Qatar to put pressure on on Hamas. And we have seen that it worked with the release of the first two abductees. Now add to that Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, although originally it's a Wahhabi-based oriented. However, we know that Saudi Arabia has been transformed in the last recent years in 180% degree, because it is willing to come close to the West, it's willing to come close to America, it's willing to come close to Israel and to other Western countries for its own self-interest. I mean, it feels that the jeopardy of the nuclear aspirations of Iran. It's not willing to be alone in this fight against Iran, so it's willing to have peace agreement with Israel. It has economic interest with Israel and with the West, and therefore we have to take advantage of the fact that there has been, or there have been already, steps towards serious steps, substantial steps towards peace agreement between Israel and Saudi Arabia in order to bring Saudi Arabia into play. And so far I know, and to the best of my knowledge, Saudi Arabia is already in there. It plays behind the scenes an important role, particularly about the abductees, and I hope that this efforts will end by releasing all the abductees, particularly the civilian ones, entirely with no conditions from the Hamas side.
And I guess, as many people in Israel are saying, this is inevitable, that this will lead to a ground confrontation in Gaza. When that happens, we've already seen statements from many other regional players, including Abraham Accord nations, that this is ultimately unacceptable. How is this going to change Israel's relations with these nations quickly?
Well, first of all, I'm not a security expert. However, I am not sure that this must happen tomorrow morning. I have my own view. Israel has already full legitimacy from the international community about its right to self-defense. Israel has started exercising its right to self-defense. But Israel has to decide when it is willing to make the next step. Now, the next step, you don't make it just because you want to enter Gaza or you want to go into Gaza, but you make it because you want to achieve certain goals. The particular goal or the most important goal that Israel is willing to fulfill and to achieve is the end of the regime of Hamas as a terrorist organization in the Gaza Strip. Mm-hmm. For that end to be achieved, Israel must be sure 100%, if not 200%, that it is ready for that and that it enjoys international legitimacy, including from the Arab countries. And that might happen, especially with the Gulf countries.
But it will be a challenge going ahead. Mohammed Mataf, thank you very much for being with us.